Hello, hello. I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write, where I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors. And let's see here. Thank you, Richard, for joining in. Happy Monday. Always a pleasure to have you. And the Writing Sisters, thank you as well. I'm glad you're here early. And we will see you in the replay. So, what do we do when our ideas won't come? I'll set aside hours to write, yet nothing gets written or very little gets written in terms of word counts. Now, I've had outlines and scenes in my head, but nothing happens when I sit down and try to put the words onto the computer. Recently, I've been suffering from this one for a while, and I have a plan. I just haven't been able to write the words for my new book. And that's why I used this channel last week to force me to write in front of all of you. I got a good page written for the first page written for the first chapter of my fourth book, which is something I started working on. I finally did an overhaul on the outline this past weekend, so I'm ready to go. And yeah, it's been a struggle to write those words. So no more preamble. Let's get into the topic. We'll discuss it all. I'll discuss it all. And these are the 5 tips I have for getting over and or accepting that the words won't appear from thin air. So the first step, number 1, is to identify the problem. For me, it's going to mean a lot. Being unable to generate ideas, and by ideas I mean, hey, I have an outline, I have a 1-sentence thing, but I don't know how to translate that into the page that I need, the scene that I need, how to set the moment, how to write the actual words. So I'm, like I said, I have the full outline. I did the calculations yesterday. I want to say it's 36 chapters plus an epilogue ready to go. I have all the scenes set. I have all the characters set. And yet I don't have the words on the page. So being unable to generate ideas or write those words happens when I might subconsciously recognize that my outline has significant gaps. Mentally jumping through those hoops to compensate leads me unable to untie the plot knots. In this case, I had an outline, but there were some flaws in there, and I went through with my wonderful wife and we figured them all out and we addressed some of the issues. She helped me strengthen the outline, tighten up some of the problems. And up until that point, I was really struggling because I knew I was writing myself into a future roadblock. And so in knowing the story was flawed, my mind was trying to stop me from going forward until I fixed the problems. Similarly, the lack of ideas could indicate that I only have a story. So if I know how to start it, but I don't know how to build in all those tiny little details as I'm going forward, well, then that might be my body's way of the lack of getting ideas down could be my body's way of saying, hey, pump the brakes, figure things out before moving forward. And I'm used to writing multiple stories mashed together. My first book was a high school adventure of a group of teenagers discovering superpowers smashed with a time traveling frenzy. The second book was a mystery smashed together with teenage drama. And my third book was 2 seemingly divergent stories, past and future, that were ultimately smashed together. Well, my fourth book, for the first time, there is one clear plot thread, and it is daunting to know how to write in that way for 90,000 words. Failing to identify the problem of being able to generate ideas means I might be stuck, unable to move forward. Worse, I may force myself to move forward only to hit a roadblock 30,000 words from the start. So identifying that there is a problem and figuring out what it is or what they are, that's the initial steps to fixing the problem or problems. So if you're unable to write, take the time to figure out what might be wrong and then try to work around it, try to address it. So in this case, didn't I had an outline, but I didn't fully flesh it out. I didn't work through all the motivations of the characters. And now that I have, in theory, I should be able to write the parts that I'm missing. Number 2, stop doubting ourselves. This is analysis paralysis ad nauseum. I mentioned I recognize plot holes early. Well, not being able to fix them causes me to doubt myself as a writer. or I doubt myself because I've written something I know I'll need to redo or undo. Or the worst case, I had this stunningly visual scene in my head and the page doesn't pop like I want to. So when I was writing last week, I had the first page down and I had a pretty cool scene idea, a good way to start off the book. But when I was reading over what I had written, it still felt flawed. So based on what I did this weekend, I just started writing kind of a new layer on top of what I had already written. And that helped me generate the ideas that I want. So once I recontextualize a lot of those initial details and I go through it, and I know I've recommended not going through and rewriting a first draft, but in this case, I think it'll actually help. So that's what I'm going for. And all those issues combined, knowing that I'll need to redo something or not having it look like how I want it to when I'm reading it back, when I'm reading the draft zero back. Well, all those combined to dry up the well that I pull from when writing ideas. So being afraid that what I write isn't the quality that I want is preventing me from writing at all. And when those doubts creep in, we need to do our best to shut them down with logic. Recognizing a plot hole exists is the first step to fixing it. And I could apply a band aid, a retcon, or a cover up to address the problem. In this case, my wife mentioned a couple of issues that were present in the outline, and we worked through them. So we sort of talked it out and we came up with some really good ideas to address those issues in a way that won't that will resolve the problems. And hey, Mr. Landis, thank you for joining us. Hey, Adrian, thank you for being here. We were just talking about you. And yeah. So in other words, plot hole is nothing more than a way to problem solve a creative solution in our stories. And if you think about that way, then, and me, I like puzzles. So I try to rise up to the challenge that I face as my characters do the same. So as for writing the scenes when they're less than what we wanted, well, that's what separates the first draft from the final version. Knowing that draft zero will have these issues, the scenes won't be as colorful as we want. There will be a lot of talking head syndrome where we don't really describe the scene or the characters involved. All we have are two essentially talking floating heads in a blank room talking together. Well, knowing that they are in the first draft, that's something that we all work towards fixing as we move on draft 2, draft 3, draft 10, draft 100, whatever. So getting anything on the page is better than leaving it blank. I work much better editing something that exists than writing a scene from scratch. As I just mentioned, writing the first page of chapter 1 from scratch had some issues. So when I was going back thinking it over, I was able to refine them and come up with some more interesting ways of looking at that scene. If the problem is that the scene is lacking details, I can always fill those in later. So again, talking head syndrome, I can describe the people involved or where it's occurring. It could be a basement instead of just outer space. And if the scene feels bland, well, we can add in some subtle spices to the language and rework the characters to make them more dynamic or include some emotions to pull readers in. The point is, if we have that base level, it's very easy to add to it as opposed to try and adding in all those flavors, all those different things right from the get go. And my point here is that it's infinitely easier to fix words on a page than to get them exactly what we want the first time when we're writing them. And almost every scene in my book gets rewritten such that the first draft is functionally reconstructed into an entirely new book. It's like that Norse ship where is it the same ship if every single board in it has been completely replaced? At what point is it a new ship? Well, at one point when I rewrite every sentence in my books, is it technically a different book? So that the final draft looks nothing like the original, and it is much more robust. It is much more fun to read. So even if going back to doubting ourselves, if we do doubt our skills, then we just need to resolve to be better in the next draft. So say it with me now. I know my first draft will be flawed, but it is much more important to write that than to create my false image of a perfect story from the first draft or draft zero. So again, I know that my original draft will be not exactly what I want, not what I'm hoping for, but I'm promised to improve upon it, and I know that I'll be able to when I focus more on it. Hey, Jordan, how's it going? Thank you for coming in. And yeah, I'm glad that I get what you mean. You're basically using inspiration as an aspect to get the reader involved in your book. Exactly. But that is difficult to include the first time when we're writing the draft zero version of the book. Yeah, you're right. I believe there's also a ship made of toenails, which is disgusting. So, hooray, Norse mythology. For the spaceships in Stargate Atlantis, the palm jumpers and operating by the users, mental strength. Exactly. Makes sense. And I was just talking about being focused. So, number 3, a hindrance to idea generation is being unfocused. So, for me, the 24 hours in a day are split between my full time job, writing, creating topics for this channel, my newsletter, marketing, my dog, family, and friends. That's not even factoring chores, responsibility, and relaxation. So, I'm exhausted just thinking about it. And I didn't even list out everything. So all those pull me in different directions until I feel frazzled when I'm focusing on only one of those and not the soul crushingly large list of everything else. So we just need to learn how to focus on one thing at a time. It sounds basic, but I'm amazed how many people I see, and I'm guilty of this too, who do 5 different things at once and in general, in my opinion, fail at all of them simultaneously. So this means collectively it takes more time to do everything, or those tasks are done worse. When I was replacing my window screens, I don't know, 2 weekends ago or whatever, I messed up a bunch of them and I had to redo them because my mind was elsewhere. I was thinking about how I needed a shower because I was all sweaty and gross by the end of it, and get ready for dinner. And I was listening to music and I cut the sizes wrong for the windows and had parts that bunched up, and I trimmed the edge too far and I made a whole bunch of mistakes because I was worried about finishing in time for me to go shower. And then I was worried about the quality of the work because I didn't want to go back another weekend and do it. And there were all these other just mental drains that were taking me out of the moment. So even when gaming, I'll look at my phone when it's a loading screen and miss the first few seconds when things start up again. And the solutions here are varied. But I do genuinely think we need to practice this to be better at doing one thing at a time. Now, that being said, I'll still be walking my dog while listening to my podcast, cleaning up at least 5 gallons of trash per day, and playing Pokemon Go. So fun. Well, I guess I can say this. Fun fact, last week, the cleaning up the 5 gallons thing included a heavy helping of human poop on the sidewalk because hooray, terrible people. Yeah, always fun. Because I also clean up poop from bad pet owners too. But so I got a whole bunch of extra like poop bags. So, technically speaking, there's no real difference between human and dog poop, except that both of them are created by terrible people. Usually, because again, the sidewalk where everybody's walking on, it's disgusting and unsanitary, and leads to like lots of bugs and rats and all types of other issues. But I'm going off on a tangent. Anyways, usually I'm aware enough of those around me while walking my dog, but there are some fast cyclists who get dangerously close to crashing into me when I'm not careful, or cars who run red lights, or all kinds of other issues, or a dog that gets out, or things that are dangerous conditions. And so, I'll do my best to try and be aware of all of it, but that is greatly hindered when I'm on my phone, when I'm looking for trash, when I'm focusing on my dog, when I'm doing all these other things. It can become a mess, or I will easily miss things. And so the same thing goes when writing, where while we're writing, we need to focus on just the writing. We're not worrying about a character's backstory. We're not, I mean, it's important to know a character's backstory, but we're not focusing on elaborating on it unless, it's explicitly relevant. And even then, I would say maybe just wait for after a write. That's why writing sprints are so great because it is a dedicated time to only write. So if we all realize that, hey, I need to add this thing into a character's backstory, make a note of it, and then come back to it after the sprint's over. So focus on doing one thing at a time. Yeah, I'm aware. I'm aware. And it's always a struggle. I mean, even for those of us without ADHD, it's very difficult to focus on one thing at a time. So it takes, it's a skill that we need to practice, kind of like running, kind of like writing, etc. And that leads me right into number 4, mentally set aside the time. And this is another one where I'm very guilty of not doing well. I'll box out time to relax. I will time box time to relax, which is, I set aside, I'll play games for an hour, I will write for an hour, I will do whatever. And I lose out on the relaxing part, relaxation, when I'm stressing out over work during that time or I'm thinking about things I need to fix in my house or just worry about life in general. So, for instance, here I was all set up to record. I finished walking my dog, and because I need to work overtime, I decided to check. Because I'm working overtime this week, I decided to check my work stuff one last time before coming down here. And there were some issues that I needed to handle. So even while I'm trying to ramp up and prepare for this video, I had to get back into my work mindset. And worse, I had to remember a report that I handed in, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, maybe, to figure out what I, we don't need to go into the details. I need to figure something out from a report I handed in 2 weeks ago. I didn't really remember what was going on. So I tried to work through with the next person in the line to figure out what happened and to address the documentation so that they had all the information they needed to retest what I tested. So, similar to that unfocused time, mentally blocking out everything else to write takes practice. In actuality, I'm glad I know this is a bad example because the in actuality, it was good that I went upstairs because in theory, I think the person who is doing the retest is on a little bit later than me. So if I try to address it early tomorrow, then it won't get handled till maybe midday. So it would be a much bigger issue if I waited till tomorrow to handle it. But in general, I would recommend once you sign out of work to completely sign off. If you're playing video games, don't worry about doing yard work. If you're doing yard work, don't worry about other things. If you're writing, don't worry about anything else. Mentally set aside the time to be in the moment. That is what I'm trying to do. That's the big takeaway from this bullet point. And another one that I need to work on. Lastly, number 5, take a deep breath and write. Sounds simple enough. Well, it works. If the words don't come, stop trying to force them. Take a deep breath again and exhale and write the next thing that comes to mind. Doesn't have to be good. It can be incomprehensible garbage, but at least we're getting words down. I've written paragraphs, I've written pages that were dumpster fires, which I know will be cut the second I read or make sense of them, except that breathing in and then out, and then writing any paragraph gets my mind working and my fingers take over. Sure enough, by the time I take a second deep breath, I have a whole page written. Now, obviously, that's an exaggeration. I wish it takes more than 2 breaths to write a full page, but going through that process of just simply breathing in, breathing out, and writing whatever words come to mind, I will ramp up the quality of what I'm writing as time goes on. So when I'm stuck, when I can't think of what to write next, I just write anything to try and connect the tissue and to try and connect the tissue between what I'm currently writing to what I'm writing next. And sure, the whatever immediately comes out, word vomit that comes out, probably going to have to redo it. At the same time, it helps me move on to, we have the paragraph 1, which is already on the page. So I'm trying to write paragraph 2, well, paragraph 2 will be garbage, but paragraphs 3, 4, and 5 might actually be pretty decent by the time I get to them. So instead of needing to write, again, paragraphs 2, 3, 4, and 5 and not knowing what to do, so just being frozen, well, I have 3, 4, and 5 written, which I wouldn't have otherwise. And then I just need to go back and rewrite paragraph 2. So just simply breathing and then writing goes a very long way to working through the moments when we don't have the ideas that we want. So I want you to try it now. Just close your eyes, inhale, and exhale. That cleared my mind. And look at that. I'm ready to finish tonight's episode and start my night. Dinner, watching TV, hanging out with my wife, and then playing video games because I'm working overtime this week. So I know mentally I'm just drained and I won't get a chance to write anything. But I plan to get back into it soon. So once work settles down, I will be much more amenable to setting aside the time to write because I know I'll be able to get my brain cooking. So as a bonus, here's an extra tip. If the words won't come up, if the idea well is dry, then do something else, something to relax. I'm not talking about reading or playing video games or watching TV. Those are places which overwhelm our thoughts and in general are detrimental to finding what to write next. I mean, taking a long walk or a hot bath or something to clear our heads without filling them back up with popcorn entertainment. For example, with that page 1 issue that I mentioned where I had a whole bunch of stuff written, but I worked with my wife to finish the outline. I keep pointing over there because there's the thick stack of index cards that I keep pointing to, but you can't see that. So anyways, yesterday I discussed it with my wife. Maybe it was Saturday, either way. We have a whole stack of index cards now to address all the I have all the chapters written. I have notes to go along with each of those chapters, and I addressed the plot holes that were present. So now I know how to move forward. And then I went for a walk with my dog after having thought about the book for a very long time. I went for a walk with my dog and I came back and I just started jotting down tons and tons of notes, things I want to add to chapters 1, 2, etc., motivations that each of the characters have. I was just teeming with ideas after taking a long walk with my dog. So again, when we're watching TV, that's distracting. So we're not. I at least won't be thinking. I mean, I might be thinking about my book, but I'm not. It's not good cognitive processes that are going on. So I'm not really. Even if I am thinking about my book, I'm not really breaking things down because I'm focusing mostly on the TV itself. Or when I'm playing video games, same thing. I'm focusing on the task at hand, having fun, playing with my friends, whatever. I'm not focusing on the book. But if I'm going for a walk, if I'm taking a shower, if a run's a little bit different, that's hit or miss. But those two basic things, so running, hot shower, whatever, those are the perfect times for me to throw around an idea inside my head and just work with it so that when I am ready to write, or whenever I'm done, I'll take out my phone, I'll take out my computer, and I'll just start jotting down everything that I was thinking of in a stream of consciousness, and I'll have a whole bunch of gems to add into the story. And with that, I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write. Oh, Miss Blogger, hey, how's it going? Let's see here. Thank you for joining. Let's see. Do you know what a misbelief is? I don't. What a misbelief is. Could you? What is a misbelief? I'm getting ready to sign off, but let's see here. Set aside time is tough. Yes, that is also the problem. That's why I know right now I'm not going to be able to do any work for the rest of the week because I'm finishing up 2 weeks of overtime and then I'm going to Balticon. So my mind in terms of writing is just spent. In terms of mental processes, my mind is spent. Trying to write right now would be a disaster. So the best I can do is try and relax as best I can. Maybe play some games, read, have fun, whatever. Prep for Balticon. Then starting on Tuesday, I'm actually taking the day off, so that'll be nice. Going to graduation because my cousin is awesome. I almost said nephew. And yeah, once next week starts, work should hopefully slow down a little bit, and I should be prepped up and ready to write, which will be awesome. And yeah, a lack of real rest will undermine other things we're trying to do. Exactly. We're in mental health month, and last year I feel like I did a video all about burnout, which feels like what this conversation is kind of dancing around. Where if we're burnt out, writing might not work. The words might not come no matter how much you try and force them. So yeah, trying not to force creativity. Exactly. This should be something that we enjoy and have fun doing. And that's, writing has always been kind of an escape for me. And yes, it's been extremely difficult, but at the same time, it's been something that I enjoy doing. So forcing myself to write when I'm functionally brain dead is, mentally exhausted from a long day at work. I know that I won't get good words down, so I'm just not even trying at this point. But I will plan to pick it up in the near future. Or if not, then by mid-June when I do my second follow-up to my second instance of the ride-along, the sprints that I did last week, because that was awesome, that was successful, and that helped me get back on track. So, yeah. Also, I need to get excited for BaltiCon. Exactly. So, right. If you're in the Baltimore area and you want to come hang out, get some signed books, I'll have all 3 of them there. And I'll have bookmarks, magnets. You can just say hi and not even mention my book. I'll be there. So come to BaltiCon. It's in the Inner Harbor. I forget which building it's in, but it's the same place it always is. So if you're in the area, love to hang out. I'm always open. I'm not necessarily the best with social media. So if you send me a message and tell me you're in town, I may not get it quickly. But if you're in the Baltimore area, come say hi. I'll be there. So yeah, that is that. And let me know in those comments what you do on low motivation days. I as long as I'm not struggling too much with work, I still try to get words down on those low motivation days because again, something is always better than nothing, and it helps set me up for success the next day when hopefully I'm well rested. But that being said, fully understand taking off a month, taking off 2 months. Life is tough, so we need to just take care of ourselves. And with that, see you next time. Until then, write through the mental blocks. And yeah, next Monday, I'm actually going to be doing my collaboration tag. So it's called This Is My Book Tag. And I hope to see you all then. So have a wonderful, wonderful night and take care.